Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons and Kids on Brooms. Two very, very different games, but how they both deal with alignment. So let's jump into this. Let's talk about Dungeons and Dragons first. So we're going to talk about both of these games, Dungeons and Dragons 5th Edition and Kids on Brooms. Now, the reason why we're talking about these two today in conjunction is they both deal with alignment, but from very, very different perspectives. Dungeons and Dragons Player's Handbook, Dungeons and Dragons 5th Edition, is dealing with alignment exactly how Dungeons and Dragons 1E dealt with alignment. Alignment hasn't changed at all. It's still there, right? And it's a huge source of contention within the community. I think there are a lot of people that would like to see alignment go the way of the dodo in 6th edition. And one of the reasons why I'm doing this video today is to say Dungeons and Dragons really, really, really needs to keep alignment, and that when you come for the king, you best not miss, right? So Kids on Brooms is like, we don't need alignment. Oh, wait, we have player characters who want to do evil things. How do we address that, right? Well, Gary Gygax addressed it in 1974, and frankly, his formula hasn't been beaten yet, right? So let's look at how Kids on Brooms presents. You can deal with this, but what's the reality? Like, is it actually going to be a better model with what Kids on Brooms does? So let's take a look, okay? All right. So first of all, let's talk about Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. So it's the only real remaining champion of alignment. Virtually every tabletop role-playing game around now goes with I don't see any alignment on this sheet, and a lot of players are just like delighted that they don't need to like question their own morality, question the morality of their characters, things like that. And that's why you get a lot of games where increasingly there are more and more need for there's actually more and more higher call for player safety tools, right? Because we're embracing these tabletop role playing games where we're like, let's have moral ambiguity within our fiction worlds as well, right? Well, if you take the reins off, if you don't have any guide rails within your fiction, you're going to get in an ugly place real fast, right? Now, what's interesting is Kids on Brooms sees that, and we'll deal with them in a minute. So, where did alignment come from in Dungeons and Dragons? Well, the reality is it came from Gary Gygax. So, why am I showing Unearthed Arcana? Well, if you want the best picture that exists of 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 Gary Gygax, I think it's this cover, right? Because basically, I didn't know this, but when I looked for pictures of Gary Gygax, this was sitting right amongst them, in the Google search, and you can see like it's pretty incredible. This is Gary Gygax right on the cover. It's his face, right? So of course they put him in a wizard cap and wizard raiments, but really it is Gary Gygax on the cover of a D&D book. And in addition to that, it says by Gary Gygax and not by Gary Gygax and David Arneson, which is kind of, I feel like, still a bit of a slight. I don't really think Arneson's name should be on D&D books personally. I understand that's a huge debate, within the community, but it's nice to just see a book where Gary is preeminent. And here, so Gary Gygax came up with alignment, and he really championed alignment in the game, and I really think it's under threat right now. It's one of the reasons why we're talking about this today. All right. So in every single edition of D&D, D&D 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, you're going to find lawful good, neutral good, chaotic good, lawful neutral, true neutral, chaotic neutral, lawful evil, and chaotic evil. And actually in the game, they just call true neutral, right? So, and this has been an incredibly powerful framework that has been used for decades, and totally okay for Kids on Brooms to come at the alignment and say, we don't like the way it was done in this stodgy old way, right? But again, when you bring your solution, it's got to be better. And I think you're gonna see Kids on Brooms' solution to alignment is just terrible, right? Now, why are we talking about Kids on Broom right now? Well, Kids on Brooms right now, I'm really fascinated by it. I am just so thrilled with Kids on Brooms specifically giving us this option of Kids on Brooms gives us the ability to play Harry Potter. Okay, there's no game that has done a better job of that than Kids on Brooms, right? And it's a big deal because you can't legally play Harry Potter in any official role-playing game, not one, right? Because, well, for a host of reasons. The biggest one is J.K. Rowling has really got that world locked down. George Lucas is like, I'm done writing in this world. I'm going to take a break for a little while. You guys go have fun. But J.K. Rowling is like, hey, I'm done writing in this world, and I'm just going to do really safe, like, prequel stories and maybe a play that only a few people can see, and I'm just going to make sure that only I get to. So I'm not going to write anything, and I'm not going to authorize any of the, like up-and-coming authors who might really have a great voice, who could really say something interesting in Harry Potter. Whatever. They can all take a long walk off a short pier because I don't care. It's just me now, right? So I'm going to give you nothing, and I'm not going to authorize anybody else to give you anything either, which is, in my opinion, really frustrating, right? And of course, I'm not the only person frustrated with J.K. Rowling right now, but yeah, it's terrible. Like, it's like it's really bad when you love something, and in order to get new things from that, like a certain event is like what will release the dam, right? You don't want to, like, if you're an author, don't put people in a place like that where they're, where their only hope for new content and for the world to move forward is an event that nobody wants to hope for. It's frustrating. It's super frustrating. So Kids on Brooms is rejecting this old school alignment, right? And so Kids on Brooms, what's really interesting about Kids on Brooms is it's a few different things. So it's the best way you can play Harry Potter in an actual real tabletop role playing game that's actually released in an actual TTRPG distribution. So, but then the other thing that it is it is the game that is by far has a professional veneer, and that's no small thing, right? A lot of people are just throwing PDFs over the wall and saying, "Oh, this is a tabletop role-playing game," and you're kind of like, "Is it though?" Right? And this is a real tabletop role-playing game put out by Renegade Games, and it is farther out on the branch, right? So there are birds. A passerine bird is a perching bird, right? It perches on a branch. Well, Kids on Brooms is a passerine bird that is perched as far out on the branch of player safety of any game I've ever seen, right? They're taking all the super woke content from Twitter and boiling and actually putting it in their rules. Rather than just having a Twitter discussion, they're making it real in their rules, right? So this game is so far down the road of player safety that they've taken player safety to the point where, I'll show you right now, I think Kids on Brooms has said player safety is not just the game master's responsibility, but it can absolutely trope every single thing in the game, including narrative sincerity, right? So let's get into this. Let's talk about that, all right? All right, so this is text from within the book, right? From within Kids on Brooms. And it is how they're addressing alignment. Okay, so let's dig into it. It says we've built in some narrative and mechanical constraints. This is text from within the Kids on Brooms book. It says we've built in some narrative and mechanical constraints, and this is word for word quote, on using magic for evil in this game. Our intent in creating a game where people can use magic is not to give players license to abuse others, even in games. And we would encourage you to do the same in your GMing. Two of the narrative tools we'd like to highlight for you to this end are the school's policies about how magic is used and its consequences for violating those rules, and the role that the Council for the Ethical Use of Magic could play in your game. Mechanically, we also want to give some guidance about how to transform a player's character into an NPC upon their performance of a truly evil action, and want to talk about how permissive you should be with the innocent strength. All right, so very, very interesting. All right, so what is Kids on Brooms doing here? So they're like every other tabletop role-playing game other than D&D now, virtually, which is like, alignment's terrible. It's just an old, antiquated idea, right? Well, when Gary Gygax put that into the game, there's like three paragraphs that are like, hey, you get to play. Your player character can be any of these good alignments, any of these neutral alignments, and evils are for NPCs, right? And that shuts it down, right? It's like, hey, you want to play an evil character? Go find another game. You can't do it here, right? And basically, and they are saying this is a world with good and this is a world with evil, right? But Kids on Brooms is taking it from a different perspective. They're one of these classic no alignment on this sheet, right? But then they come in and they say, hey, what if one of your player characters wants to do an evil action? Well, how are you going to control that now that you don't have alignment on the you haven't used alignment, which is the best safety tool ever written, right? And it was written in 1974 and hasn't been defeated since, right? So now you have Kids on Brooms coming forward and saying, oh, well, now that we don't have alignment to control these players, right? We better put in some controls, right? So what are the controls they put in here? They said, well, there's two controls. Look at this. The controls are narrative tools, right? It's the policies of the school and the Council for Ethical Use of Magic, right? Now, first of all, this game it's Harry Potter with the VIN number filed off, right? So, but wait. Hold on. You guys remember? Did you see the Harry Potter movie? I think you did. From reading the book, it's clear you did. And the Ethical Use of Magic was an evil group, right? So you're going to bring people to a Harry Potter game, right? And be like, hey, we're all excited about Harry Potter. Guess what? The thing that was in 7 books and in 8 movies was super evil. That's the tool I'm going to use to keep your player characters in line. And if you go against the council, I'm going to turn your character into a non-player character. Like, what? Right? And then the other thing is the policies of the school. Do you remember the policies of Hogwarts? You know who graduated from Hogwarts? Voldemort. You know who didn't graduate from Hogwarts? Hagrid. Right? Hagrid was super good. Voldemort was super evil. The policies didn't work. Right? So Kids on Brooms, the authors of this game, are saying you need to abandon narrative sincerity to what we're basing the entire thing on, right? And flip them and invert them and make this evil group a good group and then use that to shoehorn your characters into doing good things. Wow. Okay. All right, Kids on Brooms. 1, I love your game. I can't stop reading it. It's so good. It has beautiful art. It's really well written. But this player safety thing is off the chain. Right? It's just so far out there. They are so far out on the branch that I think the branch is going to crack. Right? Because they want this game to make player safety work. Right? But the reality is, I think what we're seeing is Gary Gygax had a better model in 1974 than Kids on Broom authors do in 2021. Right? Nice try, Kids on Brooms. It didn't succeed, and it's actually really, really bad. The issue of narrative sincerity, to say you can abandon narrative sincerity to get to the point of player safety, right? So how do you get player safety? Having player safety is a very good goal, right? So how do you get there? Well, you get there by just declaring right out, player safety is the responsibility of the game master. The game master has to be incredibly careful about who they invite into that game, and they have to know their players, right? And then watch their players, and as they go into that game, from day one, make it PG-13. Right there, you're going to cut out a huge amount of nonsense that can happen. That PG-13 is a lines and veils that has existed since the 1980s, right? That's the point. Is we're getting people who are trying to build tools that are not nearly as powerful, useful, or good as what we already had, right? So, and I think that's the one thing that's really sad is the Kids on Brooms authors are genuinely concerned with player safety, but Kids on Brooms is far less safe than any version of Dungeons & Dragons ever was, for no other reason than this: alignment, right? So remember those famous words: when you come for the king, you best not miss, right? And they came for the king, and they definitely missed, right? And Gary still stands, right? Alignment has not been defeated. Nice try, Kids on Brooms. Maybe you're going to get a second edition? Hope so. All right, that's my opinion. What do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.